Welcome to Bad Gear, the show about the world's most hated audio tools. It was over 10 years ago that Arturia changed the synth game with a fully analog MiniBrute. Ease of use, great features and a sound that let many musicians wish for the warmth and organic tone of Arturia's early plugins. Today we are going to talk about MiniBrute 2. While its predecessor made analog synthesis accessible to many beginners and non-synthesists, this 2018 instrument goes one step further and tries to lure people into the expensive and highly addictive world of modular synthesis. At the first glance, MiniBrute 2 is ticking all the boxes. A modular Patchbay that is both treacherous gateway drug an essential part of the monophonic synth engine, a simple arpeggiator, and sequencer section, and a somewhat spongy yet usable keybed with Aftertouch. In spite of the endless modular possibilities the Patchbay has to offer, many tones can be created with a pre-patched internal connections. The main oscillator comes with classic waveforms and what seems to be slightly tamer versions of the trademark super hyper Ultrasaw and Metalizer, analog FM, and PWM. The sub-oscillator of the original MiniBrute made room for a more versatile second oscillator which works great for thickening the raw tone and all kinds of modulation mayhem in low and high-frequency territory. The more luxurious ADSR envelope pre-patched to the filter can't hide the fact that the loopable but misnamed second envelope, which is internally wired to the amp, is AR/ASR only. Bummer. Speaking of bummers and filters, Arturia included the Steiner Parker filter, known from its older siblings, and the mysterious Synthicon from the 70s. Implementation of this filter circuit appears to be smoother than on other Arturia instruments, but remains a Marmite choice. I personally prefer the SEM filter of the Microfreak. There are two syncable LFOs and the tried and tested Brute Factor, a ready-to-use audio feedback loop. It can be assumed that most of you are here for the Patchbay, and it is a mixed bag. Sure, there are plenty of modulation options even without having to add more gear, but I was missing essential facilities like multiples and mixers, the inverter, and two attenuators come in handy though. You might have noticed the additional legend printed in red. It gives you essential information on both the internal patches and shift functionality. which can be confusing at times. By the way, this is the Noire version. The bluish non-Noire variety comes with, you guessed it, blue labels. Although the audio signal path of the Brute is analog, there are digital men behind the curtain generating internal control voltages, and configuring the synth requires a USB connection and the MIDI control center software. The rear panel is super minimalist. There are real simulated wood grain sides and sockets for connecting an electron power handle. Just kidding, you can add Arturia's very own Rackbrute, which allows for creating a compact all-in-one modular setup, as long as you stick to shallow modules. Thanks to Klangfarbe for lending me one of their floor models, which goes for around $500, just like its keyboardless 2S sibling. Arturia's original MiniBrute introduced many people to the world of sound synthesis. Is the modular approach of its successor worthy of that legacy? You have already heard MiniBrute II in today's intro tune. Owners of the original will immediately recognize the distinct upper mid range. I wanna know how far we can push the monophonic synth engine. Interesting. Although I am still not a big fan of the overall timbre, the Brute can keep up with instruments further up the food chain. The semi-modular architecture makes it easy to create patches that go beyond monophonic tones, which is great for a minimalist setup like this. Time to test the synth's versatility and use it for all the sounds in this multi-screen jam. Actually prefer this to the original drum Brute. Although I was battling a significant overall noise floor, the Brute factor is great for beefy percussion. Finding the sweet spot is not always easy. Let's put the synth under the magnifying glass of the DAW. For some, this is the closest to a cowbell I could get. Down-tempo lo-fi Phonkwave. In spite of the sonic similarities to the original MiniBrute, its successor fulfills an entirely different purpose. Number 2 is not as easily accessible, and while you can use it as a standalone synth, its focus is on being the centerpiece of a modular setup. It comes with all the necessary interfacing options, and adding further modules is easy, as you can always rely on the inherently functional architecture of the synth, which makes its tonal idiosyncrasies much more forgivable. I would probably opt for the keyboardless version though. Putting instruments like the MiniBrute 2 on the show is dangerous. The temptation of taking a deep dive into modular synthesis grows stronger each time I touch these colorful patch cables. Thanks for watching and see you next time. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed the episode. Feel free to like, subscribe, become a patron and leave a comment what other kind of gear you would like to see and hear on the show.